everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of our public education panel series. I am your host, Leonie Maritz, and I want to welcome you to this episode, What Was Stolen, What Survived, the Spiritual Impact of Colonization. And I am joined today by my lovely co-host, Tam Dillon, the founder and chair of Critical Mass. She mentors practitioners who feel called to serve, but need clearer structure, steadier foundations, and a grounded way to hold their work. Tam helps them bridge the sacredness of their calling with the practical realities of daily life so that their practice can be ethical, sustainable, and aligned. Hey, Tam, thanks for joining us today on this episode.
Hello, it's good to be here. I'm excited to co-host on this one.
Super exciting. So, our beautiful panelists today, we've got Lauren Grassenstein, an Apache woman, lifelong learner, homeschooling mother, and financial strategist, whose work bridges Indigenous knowledge, family-centered ritual, creativity, and mindful wealth building. Welcome, Lauren. It's great to have you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. And we have Craig Q7 Beckett, Executive Director of IYX Africa, working at the intersection of biodiversity conservation, Indigenous knowledge, and sustainable livelihoods across African landscapes. Welcome, Q. Great to have you as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me tonight, all of you.
Awesome. So today we are looking at colonization as a long, layered process that reshaped spiritual life across the world, not only through modern empires, but through earlier migrations, displacements, and cultural pressures that interrupted lineages and knowledge systems. Our aim is to understand what was disrupted, what adapted, and what communities carried forward despite these breaks. And our two panelists are going to help us by bringing lived experience, ancestral grounding, and professional insight to our talking points today. So, Tam, would you like to have a go at talking us into colonization as an ancient and ongoing force?
Absolutely. So let's take the conversation all the way back. I know that for the vast majority, when we hear the word colonization, we think 15, 1600s white people. But colonization goes way, way back. And here I'd like you to open the floor for us. If anyone's got as far back knowledge as we can go on the origins of colonization, Q is our man. Q, do you want to unpack the first origins of colonization and what that actually looked like for us?
Yes, I come from a San background, so our oral history is still alive. Our rock paintings is still alive, so these rock paintings still talk. Our song and dance still talk of a time before we met anybody other than our own. We're not talking about white people, we're talking about African people that we met. And before then, when we go further back and trace it, we talk about times when most of the world was still intact, meaning not much water between us. For example, in our journey as San people, we've met many forms of colonization before we've actually met a white person. In Africa, you have black on black colonization, which people don't talk about. And in Europe, you also had your white on white colonization, interracial and interracism, which is inclusive to who we are as clans. These things were not recorded, but recorded in our folk tales, like who was our enemies, what we eat, what we worship, how we worship this. It is still found intact. And when you look at the world and how it is today it's structured on violence. Unfortunately, we can't say anything further than what we have learned from other clans. In South America, North America, it was clan versus clan. In the African continent, it was clan versus clan. These forms of colonization wiped out many civilizations before anybody else came along. And we survived by, sad to say, rape, incest, being sold as slaves by our own. In Africa, we were meat, for example, as Bushman people. The Bantu and Nguni clans were cannibal. Not all of them, but a good number of them. For example, in Uganda till today, their history, you see them wearing heads, tiny heads around them, noses. These things were alive, and we didn't really look at it. But as soon as we finally find another people and another color entering our systems, we find the word colonization. In semantics, if you remove the semantics, you're not going to find this word. You're going to find survival. And that comes down to one point. What did we do in the great migrations to survive? Some people had to do things today which would be considered genocide. We really literally wiped out clans. And then when the white man came along and their ships hit our borders, whether they were from America or anyway, it was another form of fear and another form of colonization we were shocked about. We didn't expect to see another wave of this. Unfortunately, that was the one that stuck till today. And if you look at our clans and how we are based today, we are quite mixed. For Southern African natives to say that they are not is a lie. We were met by a very large form of mixing in Africa. And that mixing came not just through colonization, but some of us really willingly gave ourselves over to stronger tribes. And you find that some clans were weak and they had to partner with other clans. And some clans welcomed us in because they could see we met a blow. We were down on numbers. And these type of behaviors did happen. You see in the cave paintings, you hear in our stories of our first creation. Our first creation, whether you're from America or from Africa as indigenous people, we talk about this has happened already and we restarted something. In Americas, they talk about how they had to recreate their soil and their ways. In Africa, we talk pretty much the same as San people or Bushman people, where we have met civilizations and something terrible happened. So we had to rebuild. That rebuilding came by mixing. That rebuilding came by mixing in a way we cannot explain today. I'm in India and I'm finding similarities of Bushman and American clans here, which is not looked at. We come from a point of a place that we call Gondwana. South Africa would be looked at as Gondwana, a place that during Pangaea existed. We lived all together. You can hear it in our silent language. We can hear it in our song and dance. We can hear this through looking at cave paintings that it's not the same artist. As a sound person, I can't really say the cave paintings are all the same. I'm in India and tomorrow I'm traveling to a province in India that has similar rock paintings. They just found ostrich eggs in India. India doesn't have ostriches. It's impossible. And when you look at the hills here and things, you pretty much have that feeling that you're in the Makwaland or Eastern Cape when you look at this place. I was shocked yesterday for the first time I was out in the jungle, and that is not a jungle. To me, that's the bush. It really looks and smells like South Africa. And when this place was together, how did this migration happen? What happened? And during that time, we now are finding traces of this in archaeology. And even archaeology can't deny that without us as indigenous people to give our half of what happened in the migration, it is not seen. So these forms of colonization, whether it was the colonization of the mind or colonization of an art form from another clan that we had to colonize with, willingly, was the accepted colonization? What was the words we used for colonization before the term colonization existed? And finding that similarities today, you could see that it wasn't as bad as we look at it. This was a time and days of feudal movements, people meeting people for the first time. I always tell my students and people I talk to, if you watched Mel Gibson's Apocalypse, there's this scene where two indigenous people see each other for the first time. And the first reaction was noting each other's version of fear. And the only which way to combat that fear was to gift something to see what's the reaction. One clan gave one clan fish, and one clan gave the other clan skin and meat. You could see the difference of these two people. And knowing Mel Gibson, he researches these things. He's not a normal director, he's into Indigenous. And he told the story exactly how it was told to him. They met each other for the first time, these clans, and they traded fear. They didn't trade meat. They didn't trade that fish, that meat that they exchanged was based on where they come from and who was behind them, who's the moving force, the capturing force. Today, we look at those people where they are living, Mexico, South America, Panama. They're not from there. They moved to there. How did they get there? Knowing the history, we hunted the Apache. I'm a very big admirer of the Apache leadership and the Apache history. Why? Because of their resistance. They fought those clans by all means necessary. Their women were not going to be touched. Their horses were not going to be touched. Their land was not going to be touched. Today, with the Apache stand, they have battled more than what people looking at, they fighting a white man. No, they fought more than that white man. They fought each other to exist. And where they come from, we all just right now say we're home on earth. But do we know where we come from? No. We come from far deeper than what semantics or carbon dating tells us that we come from. That journey is very important right now to learn because we're not seeing that in written history. We're not seeing that even in colonial history. The only history we see is when the ships arrived. Discovery. European discovery. European discovery cannot be the only one. It's impossible. As a leader that studies this thing and looks at the migration patterns, I have to admit that I'm only as a human being aware of discovery, European discovery, and the movement of discovery already found. You look at people like the Jews were sailing already. Jewish people was reported to be seen along Africa and America before recorded time. We don't have that history. Chinese people, Vikings are found, remnants of Vikings are found in North America. Yet we don't know this history. There's many things like this that has happened. We're finding relics of things in all over the world that is really looking at somebody moved it around. Literally, somebody has. When you look at dogs, for instance, the American native dog, the African native dog, the Indian native dog versus Australian. The African and Indian created all these dogs. Then you come to people like the Japanese. They don't have dogs in their culture. The San Bushmen don't have dogs in our culture. So if dogs was created, who was with dogs? Where's the history of that? Where did this Afrikaner's dog and the Santal hound come from? Where did they come from? They had parents. They were pets of somebody. These two things already prove that we really don't have much information of a time gone. Because if we did, me as a San person has no domestication in my life. We haven't seen horses, goats, dogs, cows till now recently. That is like 500 years ago, 600 years ago, we started seeing these things. So if history can't tell me how that dog came into our life, how the Santala hound becomes the dingo, then there's a problem. Because most of the sailing and maritime history states that there wasn't much dogs around the world. So who's the clans that move these dogs? When you look at the great migration from us spreading out of Africa, it even hardly speaks in history about these animals, which is very important. They didn't fall out of the sky. And they come from two main dogs, the Afrikaner's dog and the dingo. Today we have wolves, we have everything. But still, the history of the dog, if you look now for a very special book called um, the Dog of Our Ancestors, the book is called The Dog of Our Ancestors. It starts with Afrikaner's dog and it starts with the Santal hound. And then it shows you the list of other dogs, and they were named after people. The Santal people were from India. Who are they? They're the indigenous, the Bushmen of India. The dingo is named by who? The Aboriginals of Australia. The Afrikaners by the North African and Central African people. These are very important things to note in colonization. If it did exist explicitly in our communities, why aren't we finding it in history written down? When we look at the cave paintings as a bushman, we have cave paintings where we even painted the first white people we saw. You go to Namibia, you'll see there's a cave painting of a white lady. How old is this cave painting? This cave painting is almost 70, 60,000 years old. So where did a white lady come from on the painting? Then we
That's
find
crazy.
paintings of showing other things that is scary. Like we're finding things drawn of a time before then. And again, it shows a different form of life. So this colonization that we are looking at, are we only looking at an academic view of it? Yes. Are we looking at academic championship? Yes. We're looking at people versing each other in academic study. It is still happening with plants today. It's still happening with archaeology today, where one group feels that they found something and they can explain it better than the other. Any
Mm.
of this information, were we consulted as Indigenous people to ask what is our version of the story? That only is happening today. For the past, say, 20, 30 years, we've been asked about this. Before that, we were heathens. Again, religion stepping in. What was religion's part in covering up these things? Did
Yeah.
religion know who we were? Did the
Mm.
Spanish and the Portuguese enter the Americas and find something that they couldn't explain that infuriates them, lowers their form of human being? Yes, the Darwin theory. Look at what Darwin did.
Mm.
He knocked out all other forms of colonization. And yet, Darwin's theory was much more dangerous version of colonization. And it's accepted today. So where's the indigenous perspective of what happened? How did we verse other clans and why? It was survival.
Mm.
It was
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
plainly
why the
simple that back in the day we also watch things that scares us. Where does your fear come from? You doing that. Where does it come from? You being shouted and you look down. Where does it come
mm.
from? What does that mean? That silent language of shouting. When a woman feels insecure and she holds her breast, where was the first time that happened? How did that first happen? When a child screams and the child holds his head and shakes, where does that? That is silent languages that's still echoing in our DNA. I, for
Mm.
one, as a shaman, I believe I'm remembering forms of colonization through my DNA. I wasn't there, but I feel certain pains when I watch a movie and I see an Apache person being hurt. It's a film, I know it, but there's something real about that action that touches me, that makes me feel, touch my beads, that makes me feel like insecure. How do I feel that? It's my distant relative.
Yeah, that's why this is such an important conversation, and we
Indeed.
need to have the conversation from that indigenous perspective. Because there's colonization. This is constantly taught to us in history books. And that's just the great whitewash narrative. And that's why opening up a dialogue to two people who are indigenous. Q, you're from like one of the oldest cultures known to us. Lauren, I would be guesstimating if I'd known how long the Apache had been on the earth. I don't know if we actually have a dating for that. But I mean, like these are the voices that we do need to be hearing from.
Mhm.
Uh, and I mean, Lauren, I really want to hear from you, um, from your experience. Q's chatted a bit about how this it still echoes in today. It obviously, like, clearly it shows up, but how has this actually shaped identity for Native America as a whole, and for you from that Apache lineage? How has that shaped throughout the time? How has different forms of colonization impacted? There's the 15 and the 1600s, and then going back which Q's touched on that quite nicely for us. So if you want to take over and share with us, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I really appreciated hearing Key's perspective, because I was trying to identify like some of the similarities and the differences with kind of our story. And I don't know how much of it is glamorized because we do we do like to glamorize and be good storytellers. But I think one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was that our stories and our perspective of living here before colonization. I mean, Apaches were not the the kumbaya kind of type that you would think of when you think of more of like the northern maybe tribes. So those things were a part of our life, but I think that there's a knowing about each other, that we were each in different places living differently because that was just the way that we were placed on this earth, and that was kind of our you know our lives that we were born into. And that if somebody was we were we migrated a lot. We actually have the different clans that have different colors that were based on the directions of where we were migrating, and we had a certain like path that we were to go. We didn't quite get there, but for mine, we were the gray people, and it's because it was in between two of the different directions. So so migration and all of that was part of our story, where there were other tribes that were meant to stay on the land that they were on, and they were just meant to kind of like take care of that land. So while there were different, let's call them personalities, right, of each tribe, if they were good or bad, it was because they were meant to be good or bad. So there was this understanding that, yes, not everyone was the same, but there was a purpose for it. When colonization happened, it kind of disrupted that balance. And it happened so quickly and so forcefully and so brutally that it didn't have that time to change and shift. It was just like, oh, here's your new life. Boom. And I think that's what, and it happened so massively from so many different directions. We talked about the Spanish and the Portuguese coming to South and Central America, and then you had the Europeans from England come to North America and kind of just come on in. And I think it just happened like so quickly that we were just not prepared for it. And then the way that our lifestyle was just changed so quickly, it was very traumatic. So I feel like normal change and migration and meetings and of people and conquering before that, it gave you time to kind of like digest and shift and change, where this was just like one giant one quick swoop. And because of that, traumatizing. And I feel like that's what we deal with a lot, is this trauma. And not just from that, but also because it did happen only a few generations ago. So this isn't something that has been like many, many generations, and we've learned to deal with it and heal from it, or like, change it into the way that makes sense for us. We're still very much in that process of figuring out, what does it mean to be on this land where our great grandparents were living in a way very different from us, and our DNA is still very tuned into the way that things are supposed to be. It's so funny because I do these like weird things, and I mean, for other people they sound weird, but for me they feel normal. But like, I will drive and I will try to imagine the landscape without power lines, and like little things like that, because I want to remember what the earth, what our land looked like without that. And sometimes I do like just wash it, like it just is unconsciously I delete these things from just seeing it in every day, and I don't recognize it unless I really like focus in on reality, right? So it's just little things like that that just happen because we say we walk in both worlds, like we have one leg in each world, because the ancient and the modern is so close, like it almost feels like a rip in the fabric. But that being said, like there's also this knowing that nothing stays the same, and this is just our part of history of being on the earth, and that we're going to deal with it and still we'll still find our ways to be stewards in the way that we were supposed to be. It's just going to have to change and shift, and those conversations are really difficult to have within our community because so many things that are modern just don't make sense in our life. I mean, even something as small as like having a native vote for an American leader, a European leader, like that is just so weird. But yet there's a whole movement that started, and there are people that are younger that like really feel like it's really important to vote. And then people of my age group are like, why would you participate in a government or something that isn't for us? It's not our culture, it's not ours. We live in these little like microcosm, like micro spaces within in America, but we're not necessarily all part of it. So it's really weird. But and then there's a whole entire thing of like being removed from our people and trying to get that back, and what is your identity, and we have colorism, and we have like not all tribes love each other, like all of this other stuff that we're dealing with on top of like, wow, in 2 generations our life is very, very different than the ones of our grandparents, and then the stories that they tell and the things that happen to them. Like someone was asking, what are you thankful for? Because it's Thanksgiving around here. And my answer was, I'm thankful that the people that were around during that time were so strong and they endured so much so that I could be here, because our small, like Apaches are in different areas. Ours was in Texas, and you hear them a lot in like New Mexico and kind of in Arizona area, but we migrated down into Mexico and then popped back up on the river. So um, we we were we were down during the fighting because there was so much fighting, um, to about 20 to 30 members alive at one time. And you think about that, and that's like a small conference room, right? So those people, if they had decided to give up, give in, or whatever, I wouldn't be here. My children wouldn't be here. Like we wouldn't have a story to tell. We were barely, we had to fight to be written in the history in the history period. We have someone that's an elder that was her mission, just to make sure that we make it in the history books, that they know that we were in there, because Texas has a strong history of just trying to get rid of all of the all of the knowledge of all of that. So to me, that in itself is pretty amazing. And so I carry all of their stories and all of the things that they went through, but then I also feel very empowered and very strong because I made it through, like, the DNA that exists today. We're from the strongest of us. So when I look around and I see, even the weakness that we have, there's so much strength in that, and that's really important for us to remember, because there's so many recent stories of weakness.
Yeah. I'm listening to both of you, and I'm just
Mechanism for internal attack. As indigenous people, we could stomach the internal attack. We could make sense of, you acting me with this. I could make sense of that. It was honorable. But me being shot, that
yeah.
changed a lot. Me seeing somebody with clothes on affecting the trauma. That was different. This is now becoming spiritual colonization, where I go back into what my ancestors left for that ancestors. What happened to their ancestors? They also left traces behind of things that they felt coming. Did we know what was coming? Yes, we knew what was coming. Somebody before the group who I come from knew that. They left traces of it behind. But then there's this one thing that happens that we couldn't understand. Another form of person entering my world and doing things I've never seen before, never heard before, sounds and smells. And I mean, I've always asked people, do you ever know what the gunshot felt like to the first Bushman? We believe in the lightning. So we believe God came down and did that.
Yeah.
That sound, we call it kontima, is sound. It means the sound. So imagine if I hear the lightning. Today you see Bushmen, when they see a rainbow, we throw stones at it. Did you all know that? We don't like the rainbow
No.
because it reminds us of a great flood. And before that great flood started, there was lightning bolts, and the science speaks of the sound, this great sound. And now here comes a person that can make that sound happen. Now you see there the trauma
Awesome.
changes. And when it looks at indigenous clans, yes, we did knock each other out, but we had these borders where we stayed away from and respected. We knew who's on the other side of the river. We saw them regularly. But did we conflict? No. Didn't we? When we did meet, that was honor. I defended my woman and my children. I defended my land. But here comes something else that is faster, more intelligent, more fierce than what I could ever imagine, and it fits the description of a negative entity I should fear, a story from the old. Now, when that
Yeah.
comes in, you have to admit it's like we're living a time of the gods coming out of the skies. We're living a time of punishment. Many of the indigenous said, "Oh, we're having drought. God is punishing us." They didn't know climate change.
I
They go
think
to ceremony. We take
Lauren
medicine and
put it
go dance
really
all day in the
well
desert. Yeah,
when
we go dance
when
all
she
day in
said
the desert.
that the colonization was so fast, and that what you're adding onto that really nicely, Q, like the ferocity of that form of
So quick.
colonization, where before that it
It
was
was
like,
so quick.
you're over here and I'm over here, and like, occasionally we'll meet and we'll do our
I
thing.
mean,
And in all
I
honesty,
read
that
that
to
the
me sounds
Apache
far
had
more
flags. I
civilized
read that
than the
the Apache
civilization that
had
was brought.
beacons put up.
Hmm.
The fact that the Apache had beacons put up where another tribe had to stop, that beacon was a grave.
Hmm.
That beacon was a grave site. We all knew, you can't move past these lands.
Hmm.
There's these people's graves. Which people know the other ones of us? We said it plain down. No, our distant relatives live that side. We don't pass these graves. These are the beacons. Don't go past here. In the San
Hmm.
culture, we have the same. These are the
Hmm.
beacons, the graves. We
It's
can't
like
go past
markers
here.
of
We put hand.
respect. It's like markers of
Yes.
respect in a way where it's like this is yours and we respect that. Like we're different, but we respect that. And with
Today we have a border.
the more modern forms of colonization, there was no respect. It was sort of, it's our way or the highway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's our way or
There
the
was
highway's to
always a
death,
way out.
really.
With
But
indigenous conflict, there was always a way out. Always
hmm,
remember that. With indigenous conflict, there was a front door and a back door you could get out.
hmm,
With this new
yeah,
form of conflict, we had fences and borders suddenly. We couldn't
hmm,
get out. And today, those fences and borders are normally physical. They found in our heads.
Yeah.
hmm.
This is the depth
Danny,
of it. This was for
do you want to touch on the that disconnection aspect? Because I think that's a really important part to the conversation, is like what does that
Yeah.
disconnection really mean for Indigenous? Um,
Yeah.
mm,
What I just wanted to say, before we move on quickly, just to both of you, I'm listening to you and I'm just actually so the emotion that I feel hearing your stories. It's so, and it reminds me a little bit of what you both said in the fact that, your DNA speaks to the history. It's almost like, there's a human part of me that reacts to hearing this, and I just think the cultural dissonance of that you guys experience, as Native Americans in what's now considered America, but it was your home and your culture, and the San people being in Africa, which was originally your home and your culture, and it's like how the world has just ridden over your experiences, and how you are still so inherently who you are, literally down to your DNA and your history and your blood stories. And then also having to exist in this modern world, it's like there's a dissonance between being in the two places. So I just wanted to validate, like, I really heard that. And then also I just wanted to say that it sounds like the wealth of knowledge and culture and intelligence and spiritual ritual magic and this just sort of richness that I'm hearing, it's a travesty that so much of that was not recognized as something wonderful, and it was met with such fear and disdain and lack of understanding. I just wanted to validate that. And in terms of that, I wanted to know, this disconnection that we feel as a result of colonization. It severs your relationship to land, to your language, to your ritual practice, your ancestral technologies and experience. Lauren, do you want to talk to us a little bit about how that it affected the Apache people, and you as a descendant, how you still experience that, or what you remember? I'd love to hear from you.
So yeah, as for us specifically, there's over like 500 tribes, so everyone has a different story. But for us, language is something that I don't think we're ever going to get back. We're trying to piece together some things. We're kind of tagging along. I think some of us ended up on the Mescalero tribe. So there's some pieces of it that we can probably get back, but not the whole thing, and not the way it was. So I've kind of put that aside as just it is, right? It's what is. As far as disconnect, I think is a strong word, because I don't think that we're disconnected. I think we're still very much connected. I think we're just trying to figure out how to live in this new world as we are, right? Mm-hmm. And what does it mean, and what does it look like? So my story is a very weird and tangled story, and where I was adopted, but I know my whole entire biological family also. So I grew up in both worlds. So I think that probably happened for a reason also. And so I understand both sides of it very much, kind of like a bridge, if you will. But everyone, we have our identity. And when you're adopted, you don't have an identity. Because when you know that you're adopted, you know who your parents are, but you don't know where you come from. Yeah. So you have two choices. One is to just take on the culture or the identity of the people that raised you, or one is to go within and find out who you are from within, right? So when you find out who you are from within, you find that there's nothing lost. It's just you have to have enough confidence in yourself that what you're doing, like someone will say, oh, is that, how do we find this, and how do we figure out that? What does it mean? Do you consider yourself, labeling, let's say labeling, right? What kind of artist are you? Like who, whatever. So what you're making doesn't look like Indigenous artwork. What you're doesn't look like everything else I've seen, but I am who I am. So everything I do is, right? So I am an Apache artist. I am an Apache, accountant. I am an Apache everything, mother, because that's who I am. I am that. And there's nothing in trying to look from the outside world to what they want to define, and that goes within, the whole landscape of everyone. When you realize that everything you do, every ritual you create, everything everything, it is Apache. And we lost a lot with our medicine and all of that too. But even that, it all came from somewhere. You know, we were connected to Creator and our stories came down, and Creator gave us all of this medicine and we passed it down through different people. So why can't I today in modern and now connect to Creator and create the medicine that we need as well? It's so there are two worlds, but I think like the identity is really we really like where it stands, like of how we walk through it. And there is a bridge, and I do definitely see myself as a bridge because some of us have to be that, you know, from one generation to the next. And even more so in the situation that we're in now. And I look at the generation that came after me, you know, what I don't know what they're calling them now. I always get the X, Y's, and Z's, whatever. But then the younger kids in their 20s, and I see what they're doing and how they're embracing their culture and how they're making it make sense in today's world. And I enjoy seeing how they do it different from how I'm doing it. And you know, my parents were surviving. You know, my mom and my grandparents, they were just happy to be alive and make it through this far. And now that we're kind of a few steps away from trauma, what are we doing to enrich ourselves and our families and our clans and our people? We're kind of at this like enrichment stage now that we're stepping out of the trauma. Trauma's still definitely there. But some of us are making very, very intentional decisions to move in different directions. So we haven't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love how you talk about being an Apache and you're an Apache accountant. I think it's true. Your identity comes through you and everything that you do. And I loved what you said about being able to connect to Creator to bring through whatever you need because you are still inherently connected that way and connected to the land as well. So it's wonderful to hear your strength and the resilience and the intention to be true to who you are, no matter what the world looks like now. You know, you're holding that. So yeah, Q, what do you have anything to add to, you know, how it feels as a San person
Everything she
to
said is exactly the same on my side. I cannot, we can't talk much different from each other. It's exactly the same. And the only thing from my side is we ended ours in the 20s.
yeah,
That's the only difference. My family was still on a human hunting list. Where till today
true.
you can go to a library and find it, you can go to a museum where it says shoot two lions, one elephant, a bushman child, a bushman woman, and this wasn't for sale, this was sport. And that
Mhm.
was till 1920s. So when you look at that trauma, you get us as indigenous people splitting the world into two immediately, givers and takers. We are from people who give because we come from a giver. And we see other people as no, they takers. But then we didn't know, for example, what y'all went through as white people with the witch hunts. I mean, I
Oh
have the
yeah.
hammer at home. I have the hammer. I sit with the hammer. When you read the hammer, I was like, God damn, they go whoop like us. That's
Yep.
the first thing that went to my head is like, this is why they crazy. As a kid, I was like, no, I understand this. This is why they mad. Somebody wiped them out. I studied Germanians. I studied people that were
Yeah.
giants in Europe. I studied that they were remarkable vegetarian giants. Could you believe they existed? Breatharians, people who lived out of breathing the air only. So when I look at it, it comes to a point as a shaman and as a medicine man where I have to also say to myself, okay, Q, stand back. Let's let the spirit talk. Let's let memory talk. Because that is what spirit is, memory. Let's let spirit talk. And when spirit talks, spirit says, if my humble beginnings were that painful, where's theirs? Today we understand what happened with the Celtics, the Vikings, how they knocked each other out. And today, what makes it more confusing to us, that we find people would rather learn of our cultures and the losses of our cultures than their own. In Europe, you all can't talk your losses. It's still the witch hunt. It's still on. And
Yeah.
I feel you're sorry because I can call up my ancestors. I know the ritual. I can now put my skins on. I know what this means to me. You also had it. Where's yours? And as an indigenous person, I have to look that far back. Where is yours? What happened to yours? Why did they start the witch hunts? Was it just the religion? No. There was other factors. Genghis Khan wiped out so many people. Most Europeans, they don't know they're indigenous. The Stonehenge is there. We also have our own Stonehenges, but we understand our beginnings and our memory of that. The fact that y'all can't date back and go into that calendar makes me sad as an indigenous person because I'd like you to join that conversation. Like me and Lauren can describe this. You too can describe this, but you have too much in between your description. And that is where I, as an indigenous leader, have to say, something is wrong with this entire story. You looking at an education based on a form of colonization that we can say, thank God we were not there. Because now that we've read your history, we've seen the violence. And it makes us see the trauma of your soil. It makes us see where does this come from, this aggression. When I read about the Caucasus Mountains, when I read about this little green people that was found in the Caucasus Mountains, it's a remarkable story. But how many white people know that y'all actually had this little green boy and girl that just appeared out of nowhere? How many people know that?
Mhm.
How many people know that these people said that they from another place? Like the San belief, we from another planet, that we were brought here. Where's your belief like that? When I look at the tortoise, I look at the tortoise as my mom because she tells me things that I can't understand, but I feel it. Where's your feeling? Your feeling is generations of slaughter
Mhm.
was us renaming these things. We should have never given it the names we've given it today. We gave it power. And that power started stripping us or distancing us from you. The Bushman has a painting, for example, in Botswana, where there's no black people and no white people. We believed that there was a river we had to cross. And as we dipped into this river, the river took color away. We all were dark, dark brown, the whole world. That's why you find most indigenous people, the shades of color is found into the tones of brown. We don't have white. We don't have black. These are all things we learned through semantics that came with descriptions. To us, it was not a parrot, a all-color parrot. It was a bird. It wasn't a black dog. It's dog. You also had that. That disconnect came through a systematic wipeout through understanding what is power. We never had this thing. We didn't know what is power. We still don't know what is power. To us, anything powerful is from the Creator.
Mhm.
Today, when we see power, unfortunately, we have to point at the white person and say, you think that is power. And that disconnect in you creates a disconnect in me. There's no balance. So where do we find this balance within the trauma of the soil? I mean, not only based on giving and taking, but based on what did survive. Look at you, your eyes. Your eyes tell you where you're from. Your hair tells you where you're from. The climate regions, where this comes from. What did you do? And I talked the other day, I said, I can show you white women in history that was doing battle, pulling their babies out of themselves while driving a sword through a man. Now, you're going to think because of religion that is disgusting. As me as a warrior, I think that is damn brave. I want a wife like that.
Mhm.
And if you look at Genghis Khan had a lot of wives. He had white wives, he had Chinese wives. Why did he select them? Bravery. What happened to that? Christianity came into play. Christianity came into play. How did we allow that? We had no idea. Somebody figured it out and used it against you. And today we see that force. And as indigenous people, we can still warn you about it. Your warning system of that is gone. You can still feel your whatever you miss emotionally and the strength of your spirit, your memory. You're finding it through us. There's a likeness. There's something that attracts you to us. What is that? Where does that attraction come from? Why do you want to wear my skin? Why do you want to wear a feather? Why do you want to touch my beads? That's what I question in what happened in colonization and who we are. This indifferences doesn't exist, but the fact when we started naming things God, that's where we went too far. Today, we as indigenous people are now Christian. It doesn't fit in. It doesn't fit in. Even in your own culture, it doesn't fit in. The fact that they burnt women alive. The Salem witch is the same. The South African witch is the same. These are very important things to note on where we come from and what happened in the past. For us to judge is easy. We're judging from the point we saw a ship. Can you remember your first attack? No, you can't. Y'all have to make movies out of it. We don't. We make documentaries out of it. Again, there's that difference. We don't see death as a bad thing, we see it as an honorable thing. Even though a colonizer killed us, I was brave when I died. I'm gonna come back screaming. Like I came in screaming, I went out screaming. Now you think, no, I'm gonna go silent. What made you go silent? Church said die peacefully. Oh no, we don't believe in die peacefully. I'm with the Indian girl and her surname is kill them all. Look at that. These Indian clans wiped each other out. Her surname means kill everything. That's not you. That is her surname, her bloodline surname. So again, what changed it? They have Hinduism and Tamil now. Genghis Khan wasn't religious. He wasn't a Hindu. He wasn't Tamil. He was Genghis Khan.
Right.
So again, these things we put in our lives. I'm living the echo of my ancestors. I can feel Apache, I can feel Navajo, I can feel Swiss, Viking. I feel all this. When I touch cold water, I'm like, God damn, I ain't my people. I ain't climbing in that water. I feel a river, I dive in. That's my people. But y'all go sit in ice blocks and shit. I ain't gonna do that. Not even Eskimos sit in that thing, and the Eskimos will wear their thick clothes and stay warm. But that is the things we need to appreciate in these differences. And what
Yeah.
we need to question, the echo of the spirit. We believe the sun believed when the world was created for the first time. It was just water. The bee carried us through a mantis, or holding a mantis, and it flew and flew and flew and flew, and it couldn't find rest because there was no land until the bee saw there's a piece of flour, there's a flower floating on the water. And when bee put mantis on the flower, mantis opened up his hand, and that was the seed, the first human being. Bee then fell into the water, sacrificed herself to give mantis the stage. Now, Apache, what does that sound like? Doesn't
Yeah.
that sound like your beginning?
Yeah, we have
Now,
similar
do
creation
have a
stories.
story like that that states how one generation died off by giving birth to the new one. I am the children of Mantis. We all are. In her story, she'll also call me the children of her last story of the first beginning, our world's view. When you lose your world's view, that's when you lost everything. And we're sitting as indigenous people now at that very high apex point where you once sat when you lost your first world's view. When you lose your world's view, you become mad.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a
That's what we are.
Go for it, Lauren.
there's a poet, John Trudell, that he speaks, especially in his last later days, about the coherency of things and the remembering of things. And he speaks to this a little bit, where he says that there's something oh, hello, that's my cat. Or there's something that remembers that we were all once tribal. There's something that remembers that in each of us, and that, and just bringing that up, he talked about it a lot, to find that connection. um that would be really nice for everyone to find that connection. I've done a lot of research, well, not a lot, like as a hobbyist,
Yes.
and
Even
into,
India because of that.
yeah, into cultures and tribes in Europe, and how migration started, and how all of this, kind of happened within Europe down into the Levant area, and kind of like coming back and then coming back. Um, it's really fascinating. And for us, we can see your tribal history more than you can see it.
And more than you can see it, yes.
Yeah.
It's
That's so
natural for us.
interesting. It's so interesting.
And that's
Lauren,
where
don't you
we
want
feel
to tell us
sorry
the
for
origin
people.
story?
Yeah, I'd like to hear the origin story as well, because
Yeah.
it's similar, but there is differences.
Yeah, around here, around here, they're all very similar. They're all a story. It's usually connected to the mountains a lot because of the Southwest, and even around this area, there's a lot of mountains. We have we have we use things like the birds, because they're closer to the heavens. So we have them as messengers that bridge the two, because they can do things that we can't. um and then it really depends on like what area you're from. It's very regional.
Very complex, yes.
But then still the same kind of thread of,
Mhm.
there was a creator. The thing I think that's the same about us is that there is a creator, right? There is something there, that there are animals and species that are there, as that have gifts, and that help us and bridge us. And then we have our purpose and our connection. And ours is not just the land, it's how we're connected to the heavens, the land, the animals. Where we really always are conscious that we don't exist independently as human beings. You know, Even last night I woke up and I had 3 cats in my room. Like, what is going on? And so when I see things like that, I just think like, oh, they must have either needed something from me, or I needed something from them. So that's a thread that comes through. They give us our medicine, they give us our stories. Like, we have butterfly dances, and our dream catcher that everyone knows, that the symbolism, it came from the spider. And the spider's not always positive, it's negative. And there are stories of them, that they're bridges between energies that we don't want to get too close to. So they're that buffer between this and that. And I think that's one of the things that creation explains to us, that we didn't get here on alone. It's not us and God. It's us and 500 steps between us and God. you know
Yeah.
you
What's
know
between that? Yeah.
yeah.
When you look
And
at even us and the creation of fire, it would blow your mind away, you know? It speaks of us burning the entire world and rebuilding it. Not once. It speaks we've done that a couple of times, but we always left a small group of human beings to respect a creation, not a God.
Mhm.
It was always respect a creation, and that is when creation story shapes into what you find insects. I'm a mantis worshiper, for example. I worship a praying mantis. And till today on, when I see one, immediately I'll stop the car even. And what brings back in that is the remembrance of that. I don't know much about it, but what I feel inside of that insect, when we see a snake go over the road, we stop. There's something we do. It's remembrance because we can't remember that time. But I do know the pattern of the snake means what it means. And it's important like that. but we can't really fully explain. Some of us were knocked out. She comes from 500, 600 clans. Now, to tell you the truth, to describe the world's view of 600 clans, it will drive you crazy. I stopped at five. I stopped at five and I was like, no, I'm not going, they're all the same story. Let's just call it an animal story. And it's like that. Where us also as well. I'm going to talk about ostrich being the person that was in charge of fire, and baboon tricked ostrich, and that's why baboon burned the world down. So mantis put a stick up baboon's bum. Today, baboon got a tail. But what does it mean?
Jump into the next talking point.
Yeah, before we do that, so Q is referencing the hammer with the witch trials and the witch burnings. And the book
Yes.
that he's referencing is the Malus Maleficarum. So this fun little book is pretty much a manual on how to hunt, torture, and pretty much obliterate witches or
Yep.
those accused of witchcraft. So for those of us from European history, yeah, I feel witch burnings, man. I definitely feel those. Yeah, and this is a book that I have on my bookshelf because it's part of my history that I needed to understand. You know, why did we go on a rampage and, you know, murder a whole lot of women a couple of hundred years ago? And I'm like, oh, you know, Malus Maleficarum. Okay, cool. Rewritings in the King James Bible. All right. You know, and we do that as those are from European descent. We kind of dismiss our history. I think because obviously, I mean, white colonization is like right here, like glaring at us in the face. But we've got to move past that and be like, hey, what was before that? Like, what are our impacts of that? And I appreciate that light is being shone for us of like, hey, you're also part of this conversation because there is a almost like a global view of like, you know, why people you don't get to be part of this conversation because you cause the most amount of harm. And like we have, I definitely don't dispute that. But I think a lot of that harm, like that's come from somewhere, you know, hurt people. You know, why did we go off and start colonizing? Well, because that's what happened to us. So I appreciate the inclusivity of that conversation, and that for two Indigenous people to be like, hey, we know more about your culture than you do. That says a lot. That says a lot for us as white people and those European descent. My mom's adopted, so I don't know on her side my lineage. My dad's side, unfortunately, I do. You know, we've done our full family history, 200 AD as far back as we go. So I mean, but my dad's people have been around here for a long time. But yeah, that is a part of the colonization story. Like we did experience those things. I mean, most of Europeans' ways and beliefs and systems have changed and been appropriated because colonization. Yeah, the Romans did a number for most of us, I think.
Yes, and Tam, you're bringing up a really good point. So first, I just want to say, you know, in essence, to echo what Lauren and Q was saying, is that there is this singular perspective that is the most popularized, and it's just accepted to be the truth or what happened. And I think because you know the European aspect is so indoctrinated with this is what is, the idea of you know going to your ancestry is kind of foreign. You know, they don't understand that inherently, and it's so wonderful to actually know that that is part of everybody on the earth. Everybody was at some point created, so we need to look at the different perspectives, and we need to be more proactive in allowing the voices and the various perspectives to be shared, and that's you know hopefully what we're trying to do with some of these conversations. And then also I wanted to just say in terms of what you were saying, there's so many Christian holidays that were appropriated from paganism, for example. You know, almost all of the festivals. We've seen how, you know, as a practicing pagan, you see how they're adopted and appropriated and things like that as well. So yeah, I just wanted to echo what you were saying.
Yeah, thank you for that addition. Yeah, because it's a tough one for white people to have this conversation and not be like, oh, are we allowed to be part of this conversation? So I love that there is space for because we are. I mean, Q puts it really well, where it's like your distant relative. And that's something that I'm going to start using. Like we're all distant relatives. So if we look at Jung with the collective consciousness, all of us we feel it at some level. You know, we can feel that collective past. We can feel that collective ancestry. If we go back to the migration of humanity out of Africa, you know, we come from the same roots. Our experiences are similar for a lot of the part, but obviously how the impact has come through is obviously where the stark differences are. And also the severity, I think, is the big differences as well. That severity, there's different levels of severity. I want to move into, because we've chatted a lot on like what the impact has looked like, and what the experiences have been like. I want to chat more about um, the resilience, the adaptability, and what has actually from a spiritual perspective, how has spirituality endured over these instances of different types of colonization, different clans coming in, merging with different clans? How have spiritual practices, what has changed, and what has stayed consistent throughout the centuries? Lauren, I'll start this one with you, and then we'll move to Q.
Well, from us, a lot has changed. There was so we talked about Christianity. So with us in Texas, it was the Spanish missions that got a hold of a lot of us. So there is definitely a strong underlying Christianity base that happened with a lot of my elders. I think the same is true. I lived on my husband's tribe for a while on their land also. I would definitely say the same is true for that one too. So there's this I don't know if divide is exactly the right word, but but so sort of where it's kind of trying to make its way into, so it's almost like like mixing is happening for right now, for some, not for all. And then of course there's just like the perversion of it, that where certain people are using it to monetize or for popularity or whatever, like a lot of different ways that it was used. So it's trying to find authenticity was very hard, very difficult. Um, for me though, I was lucky. I don't know if that's the right word, but I grew up in Florida. We have the Seminoles there in Florida, and they're very, very welcoming, and they're very, very happy to like bring you into what's going on there. So we have a lot of knowledge from that, and a lot of medicine from them specifically, like my family does. Um, and when I was born, we had a shaman there who always reached out to me. I used to see eagles flying in the sky, like not real ones, but I would see these eagles. And later on, when I met up with him, he said, "Yeah, I used to send that to you so you would be able to find your way home." So that's like one of those stories. And then when I was older, my early 20s, I was traveling out here, actually where I live now. Um, we we stayed up in by Lake Lore, where we were at Hendersonville, and there was a lady that had a bookshop in the back of a store. And she I met her, and I was talking to my mom outside, and then she was listening to the conversation. She came out and handed her a book, handed me a book, and then really like connected and turned up my energies, is one way to kind of describe it, and kind of helped me get connected. So sometimes the path finds you and you don't have to like, it's not always whatever. So because we're so disconnected, there's not one way. I think a lot like our specific tribes are really coming together because we need to. And so like she was from I think she was staying in New Mexico, but she was traveling like around. And so she was just putting her medicine where it needed to be. And I just so happened to like walk in the room, and then I could continue to do it in my way. So um, I think it's very different here where even we're like I keep saying, like we're still putting the pieces together. We really are. Like even when I was up in Arizona and I was like, are there any like dances, any powwows? Some of them are like, oh, we're not powwow people. Because powwow culture isn't the same as, dancing for the reasons that we used to dance, but it is for some. So and then, and then there's also that, I said we lost our language because my grandmother they poured hot water on her face for speaking her language to her sister. So why would we have language anymore when that's part of our DNA? There's something like very traumatic in there that says that we shouldn't be doing this. Why would we dance anymore when that was taken away from us? And then we have to not only like find a way to participate, but then um, trust that it's okay to do still. There's like so many layers. It's really an onion peel of layers right now. Um, and then you have like uh, others critiquing. I have a friend of mine, she's Yavapai, and they do a bird dance. They use gourds in their music where we use drums. And they will sit there and nitpick the way every tribe is dancing. Oh, you're supposed to do this, or you're not supposed to do that. And then she's like, this is how I learned it because things are passed down by generations. And if you learned it different, great for you. But this is the way I dance. This is my medicine. So we have that coming from each other as well. And it's because they're so nitpicky about trying to keep things intact because they lost so much that it's almost like we're frozen in time in some ways, depending on like which generation of us you meet with. So there's, elders who are trying to hold on with what we had. And then there's people trying to make sense of it. And then there's the young people that are trying to take it and build the future with it. So I don't know if I answered that question,
No,
but
no, you did,
Give us
and
a lot.
and
Yeah.
what you've raised there, it's like that must be such a bizarre inner conflict for you to feel this thing in your DNA where it's like I feel like I should be doing these things because it's been done for generations. It's always been that way, but yet there's this other part of me that says that's inherently incorrect, or it's wrong, or it's evil. So it's like there's this massive inner conflict that's being caused by white people arriving and being like, this is the right way to do stuff, and literally, in some instances, having it beaten out of you. The obliteration of culture in North America. It really was the obliteration of culture. I mean, completely just wiped out. And now you're left with these kind of threads and fragments of like, this feels like it's something that we should be doing, but we don't either maybe know why we should be doing it, but it feels correct. But there's this other side that's like, oh no, like we could actually be hurt, like physically, like survival kicks in and says that's not correct. So it's almost like a battle between the survival aspect of the self and that innate part of the soul that remembers, who we are and where we're from and what we're supposed to be doing and why. What is that conflict like to live with, if you're comfortable to answer that question?
Well, I think I was born very unique. Like I always say, like God knew what he was created when he created me because I just never really care. Like I do care. Like I do care, but I have this like inner confidence or knowing, if whatever you want to call it, that if I go straight to creator, that the answers or in within, like the answers there, and even if something outside of me seems like it's not supposed to be, maybe not for everyone, but for me, like I can have the right answer for me, if not for everyone else, and I'm a mom and I raised two kids, and I always ask myself, like, am I doing the right thing? Are the decisions that I'm making good for them, and trying to walk the line between them knowing where they come from and knowing and being able to participate in the world and their generation, because on top of everything else, now we have like this mechanical world, right? AI and computer stuff and whatever, which is so far from where we were. And it's just, you just, have to go with your gut sometimes and be okay with whatever wherever it falls. That, I mean, I think that's just for me. Like I just really, really strongly have confidence in my knowing. Like I get this gut feeling, and I'm like, when it's a yes, it's a yes. And then little things show up that show me that, yeah, that was good, you did the right thing, which is comforting and whatever. But little things like we homeschool our kids. When we decided to teach them history, I didn't want them to learn European history first. I wanted them to learn their history first. I wanted them to be centered and grounded in who they are before they started learning about other people. That was important to me. So but then again, I sit there and I'm like, oh, I see them when they're around their peers, and I can see that they're different, and I just like, I'm like, how are they ever going to find a wife? Like, how are they going to find a best friend that really understands them? Because really they understand each other, and anyone that comes from the outside in is going to be from the outside in, because their life and their way they grew up is very different from the way my children grew up. And so it's just a ongoing, constant, thing. And then also give them space to be who they're supposed to be and not who I want them to be or think they should be. Or give them enough tools to live in this world, but don't give them to this world, hand them over. So, yeah.
I think you put that really, really beautifully. It's almost like what I'm hearing you say is that I'm gonna kind of like sidestep colonization and just go back to source and just find that connection for myself with creator, and listen to that. I think that's really powerful for I think for anyone to have that kind of a connection where it's like, this is what feels correct for me. I know for me, like figuring out my spirituality, my spiritual path, and like what's right and what's wrong. A lot of that was leaning into that gut feel of like, let's plug into connection and source, and what is actually right, on that deeper connection level. I think that was really beautifully put. Um, Hugh, for you, what has actually endured over the centuries with regards to like your practices, your beliefs, your spirituality? You mentioned Mantis, which is, I mean, that's your origin story. I'm South African. I'm born and raised on the same soil as you. I only learned about Mantis 7 years ago, and like Mantis has always been very prominent for me, and I'm like, oh, but I don't know why. And then I learned about Mantis, and then you started talking about Mantis, and I'm like, okay, yes, I understand Mantis for what it is. So I wanna hear from you, like what has outlasted colonization? What?
Well, there's a lot still here. You must understand, with us, we hid religion, our spirituality. That's the one thing about Bushman clan. We're good at hiding things. And we saw before while we were attacked, a lot of us moved out. But we did witness what It was already happening. Other clans they brought. Must understand, when we saw religion for the first time, we saw something we couldn't call God. And that disturbed us because we're looking at God as this thing that doesn't have the ability to say what's right or wrong, what's up or down. It happens. And when it happens, the outcome is your story and what you do. And here we see another form of God happening to people in a way that confuses us. Why does God do that? Why does God take the skins off from that person and put clothes on? And why they sit like that? Why they buried in these squares? We bury in a circle. You know, everything we do, we look into circle ponds. Everything about us is circles. Yet this new religion comes and everything is in a square or a rectangle. These things disturbed us and we dance in a circle. We walk in a straight line. These are godly actions. When it comes to a woman getting periods, it's a God. She takes her first period and paints the wall with that. Our cave paintings are period bloods. The shaman is then who? Woman. So what happened to religion where a woman's periods is disgusted? Where she's filthy, she's dirty now. Now when my grandmother told me that story, she was like you. Religion is an instrument that hides their truth. And their truth is as feral as our truth. It's wild. But religion is a order and a control. Control is just not order. There's order and there's control. This led me to study theosophical studies, where I had to find out what happened to you disrespecting the woman and call it religion, God. I started researching and then I found out there's Bibles that doesn't talk these things. I've read a lot of Bibles, especially the Uday version where the Apostle Jude speaks about a punishment that is not seen. When you read your other Bibles like Enoch, Enoch describes a total different woman. She was given power, witchcraft. She was given things that today religion also says is wrong. Enoch is said he's a lie, but yet is in the Bible. She's the story of Mantis from going up into the clouds, coming back down. Him being a mischievous god, he shapeshifts and he's a trickster. He's Pan. In your culture, he's Pan, the goat. In my culture, he's Mantis. So when you start seeing where religion comes into Pan's life, when you start seeing religion coming into Mantis's life, when you see religion start going into Muskrate's life, Jackal, Coyote's life, then you start seeing what was the purpose of religion is to distract you from the energy of creator to the energy of order. Obey. We were not obeying people. And in order for you to gain a stature in life, you need to use religion to bring order in somebody's life. I can show you verses in the Holy Bible that's not in the Bible you're reading today. But I can pull out Bibles and show you there was a time and place where y'all didn't believe that King James Version. You have Gideon, you have King James, you have the Uday, you have even the Freemasonic Bible. I can show you what it's got extra books in it that is not found in King James or Gideon. And these books talk about the history of white people, not the religion of white people. So you also see why they removed that there. When it comes to us again as San people and our spirituality, whenever I see, like I told you, the rainbow is the cloud, our mother. It's her belt. That means discipline. We learned later on, people call that a belt. What does a belt do? You can take it off, you can wear your pants, but it was also used to make you obey. So where did we start associating also religious words in ancient spirituality? Is my shamanism infiltrated? Yes, it's infiltrated because I had to change, I had to learn. I speak click words. I too. How come, huh? I can't say God in those words. God is English. I'm gonna say rat, dog, cat, all these other things. Or I'm gonna say creator. Which is it, Q? No, when I die, I become part of everything. God. So do you die to become a god? Yes. What does religion say? No, that is an atheist. You can't die and become God. But yet you say you're going to die and go to heaven. We say we cross over. We don't die. These are the word things we need to figure out where did obey come in more than one form? Yes. If you look at what the Catholic Church did in America, they did it here. The Catholic Church didn't just go and give the people, indigenous people of America, religion. They built the foundations of obey before politics came, before economy came. It was a job. A system that has to be created with obey starts with religion. Our system of obey was to obey the laws of nature. And to obey the laws of nature is much more scarier than the Bible's God. This is something that religion didn't want to be challenged with. Order, obey, control, power. These are the levels of how you not only brainwash a person, but put a person on a brainwashed path, and not a real path. For us, fortunately, our path is in click language and oral. And we had elders that pretended very well that they don't know what they're doing. My grandmother goes to church. Yes. Sophie, do you go to church? Yes, I clap my hands and everything. Why, Sophie? No, Q, that was because of back in the day, if we didn't do it, we get whooped. So now we just go there and we clap hands. Today we just go to church because we're going to go meet each other. We're going to go gossip in church. I'm like, yeah, because I see that. You're not listening to the pastor.
Mhm.
Yes, no, it's just a habit now. We just go there. But where did that habit happen? No, that habit happened because in order for me to get less, to see you suffer less, we make you obey. In the Bible, all women were turned around to make the man obedient. They used that very same tactic on us, put religion in the woman to make the man obedient. After that, what happened with our son? We matriarched. So they knew to give the woman religion, she controls the man. With my hunt, it's the same. I just don't go hunt. My sister has to wake up and say, I'm hungry. Other than that, I can lay in the sun all day. But we are commanded by women. So religion then started tampering with that. And when it comes to the belief system of who we are, sure, I can tell you the story of baboon being a form of God and what he did, how the wolf came from the sky and hurt rain and God's children. We believe that our Father lives behind this black sky. He's so powerful and he's so bright that he could blind us. So he makes tiny holes in his blanket called stars that you all call stars. We say it's tiny holes in his blanket where he peeps through to see if we're okay. And these are the stories that makes us more overwhelmed to God and the Creator because it's not one person. The Bible made it one person. Nothing in nature is single. There's two of everything, male and female. When we talk God, we talk male God, female God. But in this thing of one single God, what did it do? It started changing the fabric of belief, not spirituality. That will never be taken away. That's in my DNA. But how I believe in that memory changes. Today, you see people say, in the name of God, this and that. But still, Christianity, look at how they're doing. Islam as well. Islam, Muslims used to bury the first daughter alive because he wanted a son. But trace that a little bit back into pagan times. It was the other way around. They threw a boy in a pit. So these are the things about where we stem from. Alexander the Great said he's the father of nations. So did Abraham.
Mhm.
Who created Islam? Abraham.
Mhm.
Now, where's that topic today? Why did Abraham create Islam? He took all the gods, put it in a black box, today is found in Arabia, And all those gods are still in that black box in Arabia, which the Muslims don't allow people to see, but you can Google it, you'll find out there is gods in there, pagan gods. Abraham collected all of them after he almost slaughtered his own child on the mountain. And God said, put all the demons and all these things. Which God? It's the same thing I asked religion. When
Mm-hmm.
Moses went up the first time onto the mountain, where's that? What did that tablet say? Why did he break the tablets? No religion knows what was written on the first tablet, but we know the Ten Commandments. So what
Mm.
was the first commandments about? These are the things that makes religion change, the belief, how they make you submit to the belief. And in the San cultures, unfortunately, we talk about shape-shifting. We talk about we can become parts of God. We can become stop stations for God to talk through me. I can go into trance. I can see things. I can heal things. I can see things in a person. I can see illness on a person. That's not me. That's when I'm in trance, when I'm godlike. And again, where's the other part, the female part in that? She's the one in our culture clapping hands, calling God. The men dance. The women sit on the floor and they clap hands. They don't dance. That's godlike. The men, no, we tools. All the gods is first the female. Here is something I'd like to show you. These are rock paintings found in our country. These are different forms of female gods. They're all female antelope. Show me where's the male antelopes. Show me where's anything male in here. No, they're all female. All the gods. Did religion change that? Yes. Is your witch hunts based on that? Yes.
Yes.
Why would you want to remember that? My grandmother said Q when the Germans came into Southern Africa. The first thing they did was beat God out of us.
Mhm.
Not because they were afraid of it, because they knew it controls the belief system. You can chain us, shoot us, hunt us, but these people's belief still has them hiding their God. What did Christianity says? God can be seen anytime you want to. Just close your eyes and pray. Christianity is the only religion that closes their eyes and pray. Indigenous people open their eyes and see God. Now, we are still lucky to still see the gods that we were born to. I can tell you every story of most clans on the world. Look at Australia. Poor Crow lost all his colors and became black and white. Why? He was a god. He played with fire. He burned down the world. And what happened to Crow? Today we have many forms of Crow and they're marked with white to show what power is really about, that it's not a good thing. Religion uses white as what? A power to
Mm.
show away. Now, again, if we don't look at philosophy, if we don't look at understanding all other religions, we become judgmental. Unfortunately, I was an inquisitive person, and as a shaman, you are led to find the many forms of God. You're not finding wise answers. You're finding the many forms of God because you have to translate the many forms of this to a lost people.
Yeah.
Shamanism. You have to have an answer for them. And that answer comes from the study of spirituality, belief systems. Today, our greatest gift as indigenous people we still have left is our wisdom in belief systems, who we are in the spiritual realm, not very much who we are as a physical God. We have lost that. But when you look at how we transport this thing, I had to figure out what this is. This is not Christianity. The cross is not Christianity. Jesus, the time Jesus was hanged, there was no crosses. They used to cut you open by the bowels and hang you by the neck. John the Baptist should have been also crucified then. John the Baptist was hung by the Romans and his stomach cut open. Then you look at South America and what happens to the family of John the Baptist that actually goes and be found in history in South America. Angelico hangs through his windows of his chambers with his bowels cut open and his intestines laying on the floor, symbolizing Judas. How was Judas murdered? These are the great figures. Hung by the neck. So where does crucifixion come from? That's the image of fear. They had to give you an image of obey. Today, what does the cross look like? I mean, we all openly hide. It's a sword. It's a sword. So religion, in Islam, they believe wisdom is like a sword. It cuts through anything. Knowledge is like a sword. It cuts through anything. What does the moon look like? It's always depicted as a sword. These are the things we need to look at. We quick to judge who we are when it comes to religion. We quick to put on the clothes, the cloth, the hat, everything else. But what are we hiding? We're not saying that. We are hiding our fears of not knowing God. We are hiding our fears that we need to listen to somebody in front of me to tell me who's God. As an indigenous person, that is impossible for me to do. You can't stand in front of me and tell me about God. You must stand in a circle, and us all will be equal in the front, in the eyes of the Creator. Not me looking at you, given the main job to tell me who's God. And when you look at the Catholic Church, for example, as an indigenous person, I had to learn a lot. Galileo scared me. Galileo scared me. When you go to Rome and you look at his chambers, it is ungodly. There's demons hanging and ribs open and skulls with knives through it and black pyramids, and it's crazy. Then what happened? Then what does Galileo then represent? And yet he's the father of mapping and the world. What does that mean? Doesn't he, the fact that he's still there, they have to keep a form of the old, of who you are. There's that church in there. In the Vatican, what does the Vatican vault host? Every form of people who disappeared in the world, they have their relics there in culture, in religion. When I do an exorcism on somebody, yeah, I got my ways, I got my pendants, I got my pendulums, I see if this is for real. They have the same thing. So it's about that. Did we just strip the whole world's religions to form a machine that we can call religion? That, like a key, can start an engine, and that engine is called obey. Yes, that's what we did. Today, my indigenous belief system is very valuable, only for one reason. It can tap into a new generation's form of belief. And what do we see? We're seeing people misuse from the Apache to the Alaskan Indian. What are they using? They're using all our forms of spirituality. Ayahuasca is destroyed. Peyote is destroyed. By who? By religion first before anybody else. Don't touch that plant, it's poisonous. It's now ethnobotany.
Mhm.
And in the Bible, they don't say ethnobotany. You find all these plants in the Bible, but they're not discussing what they are. But today, because of study, academia, religion is the basis of obedience that gave the platform for finance, economy, academia, all these things, because you had to obey the wise people, like Jesus and the 12 disciples. But who was that 12 disciples? Who was Jesus? These were normal, ordinary men that was also stripped off from a story. Baal looks like Jesus. Go read the story of Baal. Go read the story of Krishna. It makes you see who's Jesus.
Mm.
Pieces of people that had power of belief, not power of obey. And today we call it Jesus Christ, Muhammad. All these things. I mean, if you look at really and honestly in Islam, even Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncle didn't want to become Muslim. Why? He said, I'm indigenous. That's not my thing. It's in the Quran. He held on to his old ways. When when Moses came down from his journeys, he saw the people practicing the old ways, dancing naked and fornicating. No, we were once that. It's like with homophobia. People want to be so crazy about it, but yet in Africa, men slept with men. In Europe, men slept with men. Today, it's called gay. Why give it a name? The Indian culture still dresses up men like women. They don't give it a name. So what happened? What does this thing religion do? And it's losing its power today. It's
Yeah,
just not
that's true.
about the babies and the children that was found under Catholic churches. No, it's bigger than that.
Mhm.
It's bigger than that. We went through a form of brainwash. That period is over. Every book in the Bible is a period. Every book in the Bible is a period where something crazy happened. And the only way to explain the craziness is by saying God punished that group for being disobedient. But they don't say God created the disobedience. We as indigenous people believe both sides. He's good and he's bad. He can make both things happen at the same time. He doesn't choose. He gives us the ability to make our own choice. That's what we all believe. So if our own choice is still there, and my choice as a bushman, I still believe this is the snake.
Yeah.
It's
Q,
still there.
everything that you're saying is fascinating. It's so interesting. I just want to move on to another point. What do you just briefly, because I see we're running out of time, what would both of you say is the right relationship towards the future in terms of, you know, working with keeping your culture and your historic identity present, and how would people need to engage with this in a respectful way? And Lauren, I don't know if you would like to start on that, if you have any thoughts.
So yeah, I guess I wouldn't be so presumptuous as to say that I would know the future, right? So,
Sure.
and I really do believe everyone has their own purpose and path. So I, the thing that works for me, the things that I'm trying to instill in the people that I love and care about is that to stay connected, and then the answers will come for you, because your purpose and your everything, it's different. It's different for each of us, and our gifts are each different. So I don't know. I just try to help people along the way on their journey is the best way that I can
Yeah.
explain it. As far as feedback from somebody outside of my culture, I don't I don't know the answer right now. I really do feel like, um, for lack of a better like description, like people really don't care. I even said things like, every if you go on my TikTok every once in a while, I say like that's my like my bathroom wall. I just put whatever on there, like whatever's in my mind. But I say like there are times when I'll see mutual friends or people I network with or whatever that will repost or make a comment on something that's public out there that has to do with native rights or supporting natives or like recognize this or put their 2 cents in the conversation. But then I'm like, what is that? I don't even know what it is. Like, what does that mean? Is it for them to feel good in the moment? Is it a performative thing? Because I am an actual Native American who have a family and children, businesses, and I don't see you giving the allyship in your daily walk of life outside of having a reshare or a comment on someone else's posts. So I don't trust it yet because I don't see it in a normal capacity where it's something that embodies them. It's just like an afterthought or whatever. Like even yesterday, not yesterday, a few days ago was Thanksgiving and nobody says anything. And then we have our own like memes that are like, I'm sorry to ruin your Thanksgiving. But here's our history. Like I'm sorry that, not to make you weep over your turkey, but and so those uncomfortable moments, like when are you supposed to think about these uncomfortable moments that exist out if you're not going to think of it outside of today? Like most people didn't even know it was Native American Heritage Month. And then if you like talk about it too much, you're just talking about it too much. And if you talk about it outside of, November, then what does that mean? It's just really weird. So I don't have an answer. There are like some people that you really can feel and tell that it matters like really to them, and those are few and far between, but like those I enjoy, like, and I have an open mind and open heart to authentic, like real, whatever, but it's really few and far between. And I'm not saying it's anyone's, like it's a good or bad thing, because like we were talking, like there's a side, each side of the coin has its own experience and its own way of dealing with the time that we're in today. But for us, it's just still kind of weird. Like I mentioned it before, we walk in two worlds. When I'm always aware that I'm walking in two worlds because it's so obvious to me that my experience is much different than my peers, and that they really don't care. Like the truth is they really don't care because they don't have to. And so I know that, and you kind of carry that knowing with you.
Okay. Yeah. And Q, do you have anything to add to that? In envisioning a type of future where spirituality is
I'm
grounded in
Bushman.
respect. Yeah.
I'm Bushman, and Bushman believes in evolution. And we are going through a very evolving time right now. Like my ancestors first called the eland god, they started calling ostrich god. After ostrich god, they started calling mantis god. And these are the evolutions of who I am and who I am and what I have to be, not in the moment, but for the evolution coming ahead of me. I'm going to carry a story into the future. And the children is going to name that story whatever they have to name it to keep on to the belief system. If I have to force them to believe in what my ancestors believed in, then let's go live in caves. I don't live like that. I'm an ex-hip hop artist in my country. I like this modern thing. I can't be decolonized. I believe in that. This is not colonization where you can rewind it or erase it. We are going forward. Science says the trajectory of Earth goes forward and ever wide. So then I believe that in 20 years from now, I might not understand my death, but I surely am going to understand the birth of a new people that we are busy shaping right now. And this new youth is tired of indigenous confusion as well as Western confusion because we are mixed people. Some indigenous press mix indigenous down, not understanding we're all becoming mixed indigenous, whether you like it or not. And those of us that still think that our ancestors are something conformed to one shape, they have a problem. Even the Bible has many prophets. No matter who they have many prophets, and each prophet described God differently. In Islam, there's 4 caliphs. Each caliph describes Allah differently. In Christianity, you have more than 1,000 prophets that each describe God and religion differently. I just am lucky that I Can read a wall, and my elders are there to tell me the story of old. I am my ancestors' wildest dreams come true, but I'm also the movement I have to be today, knowing what they've left behind. And however I see God, and no matter what story it is, it states that He's kind, and also it states that He's a very strict parent. I am that parent, I'm living it. And if we are a creator and a reflection of this creator and something He fashioned, and He says nothing is constant, then His shape and name is never constant. And if the world don't realize that we come from Babylonia and this and that, Alexander the Great ran into the Hindus. He said, I saw blue people. There is no God. They were floating.
Yeah.
Burned down Alexandria. Is gone. The library is gone. Because he also said, there is so many gods that we don't know who's who.
Yeah.
We are a reflection of it. We just lucky as indigenous people that our main colonization happened 700-800 years in that time, which means we can still remember an old version of the story. But
Yeah.
we fight and resist this version. I just can't call it Jesus. I can be straight because not everybody can say God is blonde hair, blue eyes. It's impossible, man. It's
Yeah.
impossible. I can show you white indigenous that doesn't have blonde hair and they don't call him Jesus.
Mm.
These are the things that we need to talk about. How do we not create, how do we accept that God is not constant in one form? And whoever would like to verse me in that, please try it. I'd like because I've got bishops and cardinals that I chill with, and they say the same thing. He's not constant in one shape. We called him over the years in many, many names. Why is this age so difficult? Because the new God is now technology. AI is about to become the God you wish you never had.
Mm.
What are we going to tell the children? That that's not their God? Are you going to be that brave? Because that God is paying that kid through YouTube, through TikTok. That kid couldn't
Yeah.
make money. That kid was dirt poor. God is something that provides when you ask. Unfortunately, you're not going to believe it's you that's providing for yourself. But you need to have a belief system that backs that up. I am a Bushman, but I'm also a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Tamil, a Buddhist, and as a shaman. Oh no, it's my duty to say, which one should I help you with? How do I serve you today? Do I serve you as a Christian? Do I serve you as a Hindu? Do I serve you
Yeah.
as Apache? Do I serve you
Yeah.
as Inuit? How do I serve you today? Which vibration do you feel is yours today? Because tomorrow you can change your vibration. God says you can do that.
Mhm.
God says you
I
can
love
do
what
that.
you're
Creation
saying.
also
I
says you
love
can
what
do
you're
that.
saying. I think it's so
So we need
interesting
to
what
shape
you're
it.
saying.
Yeah. We need to bring out the question of the consistency of God. The Hindus got so many gods. Tamils got so many
Mm.
gods. I'd like that. I like a lot of gods because it doesn't make me a person that will discriminate. No
Mm.
God discriminated ever. No God did that. We discriminate because we don't understand the scripture, because it's not in my
Yeah.
language. That is
Yeah.
important. And where my sister Lauren sits, when you remove somebody's language, you remove God. She has to now create her own God. You can't tell her that she's wrong because her child sees her as a God. So you're going to tell her she's wrong parent? No, we need to parent our thoughts when it comes to God.
Mm.
We need to parent our thoughts when it comes to God. He changed in how many? She changed in how many? We're from a stone that we worship to the evolution of a living organism. You can't stop it. Religion knows it. That's why it's falling apart. It can't hold on to its old ways because there's a new one born. Within Christianity, there's a new Christianity born. We see it
Mm.
every day. There's a church, a different church in every corner named a different thing. So let's just remind the world that the gods did change along the journey. That's called pathfinding. I have to find the path. And every time I find the path, I'm going to call God on different names. The greatest God I still call on whenever anything happens to me is Mommy. It's still the greatest God. It's the only one that will make me react better than anything is Mommy. When I'm in pain, I say Mommy. And that's since the dawn of time. And we all still say since the dawn of time in any situation, Mommy. When did we remove her from being God? So we need to always remember the evolution of belief, of spirituality, is belief found in many colors, many varieties of it. I can't, like my beadwork says, this is a lot of colors. I am filled with so many memories. You are filled with so many memories. We can't call it one single thing. The greatest trick that was played on us was religion,
Yeah.
not colonization. It was religion. And its efforts is ever ending. And today we see that effort diminishing for the first time in our lives. I can go anywhere and not feel bad that I'm not Christian. Back in the day, 100 years ago, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Look at us today. I'm free.
Having these conversations.
I don't go to hell. There is no hell. There is no heaven. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know nobody who came back and painted the fiasco of God chilling with a joint in his hand or Jesus chilling there by the park. No, no one ever saw that. We all know we're going to the unknown, and that unknown should be appreciated, that it's a new start. That's all we need to know. Many people today around the world hurt because they're not good enough for that version. When are you just
Yeah, I
going to
think
pray? Just pray. Pray to who? Pray to him.
so. I think everything that everybody has said is so valuable, and I just want to thank you all so much for your insights and your amazing wisdom and sharing your culture and sharing your opinions with us. We have learned so much. I mean, my mind has been so blown. My heart feels so bittersweet at hearing some of the extremities of the stories, but also hearing so much of the beauty and the ritual and the rich culture that exists and the way that you've reclaimed yourselves and your stories in this modern world. It's just absolutely beautiful. So I just want to thank you for sharing your histories, your insight, your experience. I want to thank you for being here and thank you, Tam, for co-hosting with me. And I just, yeah, what a wonderful episode. Tam, do you have anything to add as we end off?
I don't. This is absolutely the richness that I was hoping for from this conversation. I knew that both Lauren and Q would bring just thousands and thousands of centuries of knowledge with them, and they've done that so beautifully. So just a huge thank you for letting us be part of the conversation, and for bringing the such a grounded approach to a very touchy subject. I think we've handled this one really beautifully. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Leonie. I'll let you
Thank
close
you.
off.
Thank you. And then just for our viewers to let you know that our next episode that we're going to be doing on our educational panel is Beyond the Horoscope, the Dilution of Astrology. And we're going to be exploring how astrology has been changing over time and how its richness and culture has also been diluted over time with the various influences of culture and innovation and commercialization. So please be sure to join myself and seasoned astrologer Laurie Norton for that insightful conversation next time. Thank you everyone for watching, and we hope to see you again next month. Thank you everybody. It was so great to chat to you.